Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast series dedicated to women working in the field of sustainability. I'm Tonia Plakhotniuk, and I will be your host today. With a bit of sadness in my heart, I want to say that this is our concluding episode. But the good news is that we're not ending the conversation here, and there will be a different series launched later this year. So please stay tuned. And for this episode, we've got a real treat for you. We have invited three wonderful guests, Kerstin Ahlqvist, Catherine Bohill, and Kate McGrath. Kerstin is the head of long-term funding and sustainability at Swedbank Group Treasury, and Catherine leads ESG development and impact at Telefónica. And Kate holds a role of ESG senior investment manager at Aberdeen, which is the largest active asset manager in the UK. And really, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to have the three of you on this concluding episode. So let's jump straight into it. And to kick things off, could each of you tell us what do you do day to day and how you came into the world of sustainability? And maybe Kerstin, I'll start with you first.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me, and really good to see you and also the other participants. And as you said, I'm heading long-term funding and sustainability at Group Treasury in Swedbank. I worked with finance for approximately 20 years, and I started with credit sales, and over the years had different roles within DCM in Stockholm and London. And when I got the question to join our treasury team, it was in 2018, and it came at a time when I had already started to think what a next step could be, and I was certain that I wanted to learn more about sustainable finance. And I was at that time just wasn't sure in what shape and form it would be. So in 2018, I started as head of long-term funding, and over the years my role has developed into what it is today. So more of a dual role, funding and sustainability. And I guess that my starting point has been that we have a strong conviction that we as a treasury function play an important role in the bank's overall work with sustainability as the unit responsible for securing funding and capital for the bank. And therefore, treasury early on has been heavily involved with driving efforts versus both internal and external stakeholders. And maybe that is an approach that is actually differs a bit from other treasuries. And I think that what I wanted to share, because I've been thinking a lot about it with this question as well, is that there are two key factors that enable this journey. And the starting point was actually down to luck in a way. And so we have been lucky enough to have management who supported the vision and pretty much gave me and my colleagues free hands and time to work with our sustainable funding strategy parallel to the more normal funding activities. And secondly, again, luck. I've been fortunate enough to have another very purpose-driven colleague in my team, Julie. And we have put a lot of effort and time into brainstorming and really plan how to put a vision and strategy into place to achieve best possible impact. So going back to my day-to-day job, we try to leverage the unique position Treasury has to drive the ESG agenda. And we have tried to frame it both with an internal perspective and an external perspective. And the internal perspective, then, just very briefly, is then to link the success of funding and capital to our internal efforts in ESG, and that we have used data to quantify what that benefit could be. So we believe that by being best in class in all aspects of ESG as a bank, we can secure better and cheaper financing for not only green and social bonds, but for all our capital stack. So that then can contribute positively to our ROE. And the external perspective is that we are very fortunate to have NatWest and 29 other investment banks globally who actually want a share of our wallet. So what we have tried to do is to leverage this as a steering tool to achieve more far-reaching purposes and implemented several initiatives aiming to positively impact environment, diversity, inclusion through interaction with our coverage banks. So we, for example, have an ESG survey that we have yearly with our coverage banks. We have a sustainable meeting policy put in place since 4 or 5 years back. And a year ago, we also launched a diversity ambition statement. And I can maybe come back with that. But that was a long intro, but I think it captures kind of how the day-to-day looks and how I got into this field.
Excellent. Thank you, Kerstin. And maybe Catherine, I'll come to you next. And then Kate.
Yeah, hi there. So my remit includes responsible business, diversity and inclusion, and stakeholder engagement. So the day-to-day is unfortunately plenty of reporting, but I do strive to make sure the engagement and the listening and understanding of our stakeholders takes priority. And, you know, the most important thing that I have on my list of things to do is to attract ESG-oriented capital. What does that mean? It means understanding investor demands, stretching the commitments, and also raising awareness of Telefónica's credentials. I came from the business. I worked for 20 years in wholesale, in, you know, the networks, in spectrum, the frequency auctions, and in M&A. And I guess the reason why I took this step over, I was asked to try and help the company monetize this wonderful success we were having in sustainability, but like not too many people knew about that. So we've launched a few programs to really bring home to our stakeholders, to customers, to society as a whole, and to investors, to try and put Telefónica on the map as an ESG value. Telcos is not the first point of departure when asset managers are looking at ESG investments, and part of my job means trying to get it more on the map than it is. And so that's what keeps me off the streets. And I really love my job, and I love it also because it means working with the whole business. You know, sustainability isn't something that's just run from the third floor of our headquarters. It's something that every part of the business, in order to be that successful, needs to do. And I think that's what we're doing, and my colleagues and my team. That's how we're able to reap a lot of benefits from our work in sustainability. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Thank you,
Catherine. I think my intro leads on from yours very nicely. So as working at an asset manager, so I work in the fixed income department at Aberdeen as a senior ESG investment manager. Now, what does that mean in practice? Well, really, it means that anything ESG related in the world of public or private credit will come my way. So this is supporting our investment grade, high yield, sovereign, private credit funds meet their ESG mandates and objectives. And this could be anything from SDG alignment, climate transition, green bonds, as Kerstin mentioned, all the way to engagement with our investee companies. Like I would be engaging with someone like yourself, Catherine, on sustainability matters. So it's a super, super broad role. I also love it. I get to talk to clients, I do company research, and ultimately my role is really to support the broader team. So very much like Catherine, sustainability is totally embedded and integrated into company analysis and funds. Now, I'd love to talk a little bit about my background as well, so how I got into this. And my background is really environmentally focused. So I have a degree in physical geography. I've always been fascinated by the Earth's natural systems like climate and how we as a society interact with these. As mentioned, my job title is ESG, and I do have experience outside of work in the S and the G of ESG as well. So in my spare time, I volunteer at my local Goal Guiding unit, and I'm on the board for Goal Guiding Scotland. So this shapes the experience of 40,000 young members. So I'm super, super passionate about really empowering the next generation of female leaders and ensuring they've got the opportunity to develop life skills, which really feeds into the work that we do as well. So truly trying to live and breathe sustainability and ESG like everybody on this call. So it's brilliant to be joining these really inspiring women today.
Amazing, thank you, Kate. And yeah, speaking of the background, I wanted to ask yourself, Kerstin, Catherine, whether there was anything in your personal background outside of work that helped shape where you are right now and what you are doing in your profession. And maybe building on that for everyone, really keen to know in 2 words what sustainability would mean to you. So maybe Kerstin, if you go first.
Absolutely. I think that was a very interesting question. It made me really think about what the background and the way we live and people that we meet, how that influence what you do today. So, and I can say, I can very much agree with Kate that, I'm also influenced by, I've been doing societal engagement since many years back. At the time of my university studies, I was the treasurer for Red Cross, and I later also co-founded the project in between the School of Economics where I studied and high schools in Malmö here in Sweden, where the percentage of students moving on to your university was very low. And today my volunteering is more about breaking the stigma for lonely elderly persons. So, and I guess it goes, driven by purpose, my professional and personal life go hand in hand. And I think that is wonderful, to kind of have these two, both professionally and also in the private life. But I do think that most people are shaped by background, and that values and develops early on by people. And I think the one person that influenced me a lot is my mother. And she was, and this is, she has always had this very natural human approach to other people in her, but never ever made a point of what she's doing to help other. And it was just rooted, and she walked the talk. And she was a science teacher and was a very early adopter back in the 70s for the climate agenda. So parts of my childhood memories is about her nagging about Agenda 21 in the 90s and talking about not wasting food. She would never take the car if there was a train or a bike available, etc. So, and I think that is quite nice. It's nice to have a role model. And again, I didn't think about this when I grew up, how much it would maybe influence me to what I do now and where I am. So it's good with role models, and it's interesting how things along the way kind of impacts what you do later, even though you don't think about it at the time.
Thanks, Kerstin and Catherine.
Should I jump in there? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So 2 words that summarize sustainability right now. I love. You've given me pause for thought there regarding your mum, Kerstin. My mum is also a role model. I'm not sure she mentioned Agenda 21 in the 90s, but she certainly said all those things and walked the talk, as you said. For me, going back to the business, sustainability right now is to a certain extent a bad word, and there's been a lot of backlash in the press. And I think it's really important that we as sustainability professionals try and convince internal stakeholders and external stakeholders by showing them that ESG is all about resilience and return. These are my 2 words, because I think it's wonderful that we all have purpose and we want to make the world a better place. But as regards to ESG in the business and sustainability in the business, it's really important that we bring everybody's focus to the fact that being good at sustainability, having everything as in line as best as possible across the pillars of the environmental, the social, and the governance means that your company will be stronger, your investments will be stronger, your return will be stronger. And I think it's very important, particularly at this moment in time, to show the world that we have a very pragmatic approach. And this is about using our resources wisely. This means that we will be more robust, and be able to withstand any shocks that might arise. And this may be as simple as taking out the right insurance protection. This may be more complex, about making sure your whole processes of getting your product to market are strong. But being good at sustainability means getting your supply chain right, reducing your risks. It means cutting costs, and it means helping to get your reputation and providing this long-term focus to the company, and this is towards internal stakeholders, can help try and cut the rhetoric for short-term efficiencies, but a focus on long-term growth. And that is the biggest struggle that we have as sustainability professionals, is the short term and the long term. But we need to be able to convince the market that we're a pragmatic approach, and we're focused on sustainability levers that make us stronger and ultimately can show an alpha to the market. So I think right now, for me, it's about showing the Excel and showing everybody that it is actually going to be good for everybody, not just for the world, but for business. This enthusiasm and this hard work towards the sustainability agenda.
Oh, thank you, Catherine. That was great. And I should say that the topic of resilience and return, or the focus on these topics, this is something that I keep hearing in every conversation we go to and every conference we attend. And I'm pleased that the conversation is turning towards that direction, because I feel that this way we can really engage and convince more stakeholders to get on the mission and the objectives that we have ahead of us. So hopefully more stakeholders, more of us could join up the effort and work towards common goal ultimately. And if I can turn to you, Kate, and then Kerstin, very briefly to describe what sustainability means to you, just in a couple of words, please.
So I would completely echo what Catherine said, to be honest. My words were going to be either the future or long term, and I think you probably said both in your section. And this is really because when we think about what sustainability actually means, like what it actually means as a definition, it's about meeting the needs of present generations without compromising future generations. And that's why it's so important. So I support a lot of pension funds in my role. And if these clients aren't considering sustainability, they aren't thinking about their pension as future. Now, I'm not the only one that wants to retire into a world that is less than 2 degrees warmer and has reduced inequalities. And sustainability funds can allocate capital towards those objectives. So that's exactly why I think sustainability is so important, because it is thinking about the future, it is thinking about long term, and ultimately these things make sense when you're thinking about the timescales of the investments that we're making as asset managers.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think that the participant has said so many smart things. I won't repeat everything, but I mean, I guess that a few words that come to mind that I will repeat again, even so, is the purpose, ability to positively impact, and resilience is a word that I don't know how many times I use that every week, because it is so, it's a very good thing to be, and it's something that is needed in order to work in this field, I think. And again, I mean, to your point there, Kate, I mean, I work for a bank. We also have enormous resources as bank community and an ability to impact. And I think that we collectively are doing it, and we can probably do more to steer our funds to the future. And that future entails green transition and societal engagement in different shapes and form.
Excellent. And I'm just curious, in your current role, have you experienced a moment, big or small, that really reminded you that your work matters? It's just off the back of what you said, Kerstin, and maybe Kerstin, just staying with you.
Yeah, actually, I love that question, because I had a very recent example. And it actually happened on Tuesday this week, where ICMA had an event here in Stockholm on the topic diversity. And we were invited to present Group Treasury's diversity ambition statement that we launched a year ago. And I briefly touched on it before, but in this statement, very, very quickly, we declare we want to work with more diverse and inclusive coverage teams, i.e. investment banks, these 31s I was talking about before. And it's based on our conviction that diverse teams produce better results and advisory to us. And the invite actually came, and I dated this back when I got this question, to the 21st of January. So one day after the US administration took place. And Grigori, head of Treasury, presented it, and it was actually the first time in an open forum that we presented this statement and the rationale and what we hope to kind of achieve with it in terms of incentivizing our coverage banks, but also hopefully other peer banks in the market. And the timing, I mean, it could not have been better, given the development and also that Catherine talked about since January. And I was really, really proud to show that we stand up for our beliefs and commitments, even in times of change. So that was a recent, only a couple of days fresh memory.
Oh, that's excellent. Thanks, Kerstin, for sharing. Yeah, I'm a strong believer that, it is very important to keep the conversation and the dialogue going. And I think the more of us are able to stay the course, so to say, I think, again, hopefully we can engage and inspire more of others to stay the course and maintain the momentum and keep on doing all the great work that I think many professionals in this field have been passionate about over the many years. Yeah, great. And maybe Catherine.
Kerstin, congratulations. I mean, that's really important. And, the fact of the matter, we have a reality. And in the US, with this backlash, so it's really important that we're vocal, but within a rational form. We have to appreciate that there are some entities that just can't go against what's happening. And I'm glad it doesn't really affect Telefónica as strongly as other companies, but so important there, and particularly from an investor and from a banking point of view, that you're supporting companies and the whole ecosystem, because the fact of the matter, this is probably going to go on for 4 years. So yeah, and for my side, just quickly, in 2022, we put in an objective on diversity to double the number of people with disabilities working in the organization. And we achieved this, and it was, it felt good, because myself and my colleagues and obviously management, everybody, it wasn't just me, but, I was integral for putting that objective on the table. And it felt good when we achieved it. But you know what? It felt important when I bumped into someone whose sister was part of that program and working with Telefónica in a STEM function, and it felt important for 2 reasons. One, because this was someone who was blind, who went into the typical career for a clever blind person, which is physiotherapy, and never happy, and was given this opportunity to retrain. and was really ecstatic about the opportunity, told via her brother. But also, it's great for Telefónica. I mean, we're desperate for STEM qualifications. You know, about 20 years ago, we got the brightest people in Spain because the place to work was Telefónica. But now, you know, if you're a supermarket, you need STEM people, right? So the competition is fierce. So it's just like a no-brainer, you know, to be able to open up your eyes, open the market. And this is why being accessible, and we're trying to do the same for our products and services, so we capture more markets. So it's important because it was good for a person, but also good for business. And bonus point, this brother is also quite an influential journalist. So, but that's just anecdotal. That was the moment I was most proud of.
Excellent, Catherine. And Kate?
Catherine, I loved that example. As an investor, when we engage with companies, that's exactly what we're looking for. So that's really put a huge smile on my face. My example is as an investor, I engage with lots of companies. That's a large part of my role is meeting with companies, making them aware of the ESG risks and opportunities that are financially material if they're not already talking about them publicly or with investors. And part of this is obviously to help us with our financial analysis so we understand strategy better. And another part is for us to set milestones with these companies to really push them towards best practice. And I was engaging with a UK housing association, which is actually a not-for-profit organisation that does issue bonds, and they provide affordable housing to people in need. However, their board was made up of white men over 50, which really was not representative of the communities that they serve. And we said that to them in quite a frank way, I must admit. And because of that, the finance director actually invited us to a board meeting to co-create a diversity and inclusion strategy with them. And since then, they've attracted more diverse talent, and they now have 2 female board directors, which is a brilliant outcome. And that's a great example. However, most of my interactions are gently nudging these issuers rather than having such a direct cause and effect. But I know that I'm not alone in this industry, and that the cumulative impact of these ESG investors mentioning these ESG risks, pushing towards best practices, sharing our learnings, really does drive meaningful change. So that's my example, and you see these all the time, really, where collective investor action can create these changes, and that's really what keeps us going.
Oh, excellent, Kate. I mean, that's the power of engagement, and I think that's a really, really good example because I know very well that engagement is something that is not very easy to measure sometimes. And I think those real life examples, they do bring it to light. And staying with you, Kate, for a bit. So you've mentioned how you maintain dialogue with the investee companies, with the issuers, and I think it's not a surprise that working in sustainability often means facing and dealing with resistance. So could you give an example of whether you've face that resistance, whether it's internal, external, or systemic, and what really helped you to push through it?
Yeah, I think all sustainability professionals will have several examples of this. But I must admit that I feel very fortunate in my current place of work at Aberdeen. I haven't had to win hearts and minds on the importance of ESG integration. And when engaging with companies, I mean, obviously ESG is in my job title, so I think they know what they're letting themselves in for when they speak to me. However, where I face resistance, surprisingly, is actually on the client side. And I do have a very recent example where a client told me that climate change isn't real, it's just the weather, and that carbon parts per million have not increased since he was born. Now, in situations like this, it's super easy to get sidetracked into a morality debate, but quite frankly, that's not professional. And I've learned that I will not win clients over by pushing a green agenda on them that they do not believe in, or even directly challenging their facts, which we know were actually incorrect. So as a team, we reaffirmed the view that ESG factors are financially material and directly impact the value and performance of their investments. And that really brought us back to the shared common ground of fund outperformance, which is what we're here to do. And these ESG factors are material. So I'll just give you a brief example that just this year, Target lost $12 billion in market value, the US company, after scaling back its DEI commitments due to an 8% drop in customer numbers, as shoppers actually chose to take their business elsewhere. So this is just an example that ESG issues do impact financial outcomes, and we can actually frame sustainability as fiduciary duty for these examples where it is financially material, and we need to protect the value of our clients' investments, which is what we're here to do. And this is the approach that I found works to overcome this resistance.
Oh, perfect. That's a great example you've shared, Kate. I think, again, we are almost like at the stage where the financial materiality and integration of sustainability factors and risks into the financial paradigm is a developing field, right? So the information about it is still fairly patchy. I would say there is no consistent way to do it right now, or I would say the market, the companies have not come to that stage just yet. But again, bringing it through the examples, it's really powerful. And I just actually wanted to ask another question, and maybe I'll start with you, Kerstin. So, could you name one thing or topic that you wish people talk more about in this field, or any elephants in the room, or any subject that you feel isn't addressed enough?
So I would like people to talk a lot more how ESG is financially material, and it means ourselves getting those examples to market, showing these examples, getting it all into Excel, and also realizing that even though we have a nice named area and it sounds great, we're every day doing these podcasts and every day on these glorious events, but the reality is we're doing loads of Excel like everybody else. And we're showing these examples. And in our case, if I may, I'll give you an example, which is we save money by signing PPAs, renewable PPAs. And during the energy crisis, our OPEX improved, or was less damaged than others because we already had PPAs in place. So we're hedging our costs via this bet, and this helps us get to our net zero objectives by 2040, but it also saves money on the way. And then the other example is we can sell more because everybody is becoming more aware of this, of the tragedies that are occurring because of climate change. And so our customers are becoming more aware, so they want to buy more products which are sustainability sensitive, that measure the carbon emissions. So our work, and what we need to talk a lot more about, is how by being good at sustainability can show an alpha.
Perfect. Thanks, Kerstin. And Kerstin?
Yeah, I think I must say that I think that what Kerstin said was really, really, really good. And I think that if we talk about silent issues, or maybe put it this way, I mean, some things in the Nordics that we have been quite good at, I think, has been the green transition agenda. And that is something we talk a lot about here, which is great. Again, we are based in the Nordics. We live in welfare countries. So maybe one of the more silent issues is social engagement or social economical empowerment. And again, it comes back to the fact that we live in welfare countries where the state is very active in its supports. And it almost seems that like we banks are taking a backseat role in social lending, while focusing all efforts then on the green transitions. And I think that we, as a country in Sweden, for example, we definitely have challenges with socioeconomically weak areas, unequal opportunities for some target groups in society. And I believe we banks can steer our funds better, also to take a more collective responsibility to address these issues in society.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think this question, I would really like to hear from the three of you. If you could time travel 10 years in the future and see the impact of your work on sustainability, what would you hope to find, and what could surprise you the most? In fact, that was one of the questions posed by one of our previous participants. So maybe Kate, starting with you first.
Yeah, this is a fascinating question, and I think in a way it relates back to what I'm thinking about the silent issues in the field, because I think that what's not talked about enough is sustainability outside of our sustainability bubble. I went to a conference recently and we were very much preaching to the converted, I must say. So what I would like to see within the next 10 years, what I'd love to be surprised by is a major cultural shift where consumers align their purchasing and investment decisions to sustainability goals. So we know that today people want to buy products, everyday products that align to their sort of ethical and sustainability beliefs. And there are a set of brands that people might boycott, or fashion retailers that people wouldn't buy clothes from, but they might not realize that actually their pensions and portfolios are inadvertently actually funding these companies. So that's what I would like to see over the next 10 years. I'd like to see that we have truly aligned sort of ethical consumerism with our investment decisions. And it's not just sustainability investors that are talking about this, it's retail investors, and that the jargon of ESG, ethical, SRI, sustainable is made much clearer for these retail investors to align their financial decisions with their personal values.
Thanks, Kate. So sustainability becomes less of a niche, but way more mainstream and normal and common. Great. And Kerstin, over to you.
Yeah, but maybe I can build a bit on that. And then I would like to then highlight, and I think that it has been already mentioned before, so this is not rocket science, but my experience at least is that what works best in order to get things moving, and for example, then achieving, I mean, Kate, your ultimate goal there is to be able to present and track data and numbers in a better way that actually proves the point that there is financially, environmentally, and socioeconomically benefits to actually move forward on the ESG agenda, real, and also the cultural shift is super important. And I think that this numbers and data shows that status is black and white and is free as well from what we discussed before, the political cycle and commitments and the shifts in that. So with the help of data numbers, I'm quite hopeful to continue fruitful discussions to achieve this materiality that we have discussed here today.
Thank you. And Catherine?
Yeah, just quickly agreeing with both my fellow panelists, and maybe I would say that we're all working, and the sector is working, and you know, lots of companies are working in this way, and I think we will get to this great state where everybody is actually putting their money where their heart is, and really showing things maybe in 20, 30 years, because frankly, so many disasters will have happened and people will slowly wake up. The surprise would be if that all happened in 10 years timeline, and that would be the surprise, where we can expedite, where we can really make things happen before people have to really personally feel, or by an extended family or friend perspective, personally be be touched because of these disasters, and that will actually speed them into action, but rather that this happens without the need for them to be to personally be affected, but rather their empathy levels increase, and their capacity to empathize helps us get there in this shorter time frame.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Catherine. We don't want a crisis to be the reason why suddenly the world would mobilize. We definitely want to prevent that from happening. And we had another really good question from a previous participant, and maybe again, Kerstin, I would come to you first. So in the current landscape where the priorities can shift with political cycles, as we've seen, how do you maintain trust and engagement with stakeholders who may revise or roll back on previous commitments? And what approaches have you found effective in continuing to work collaboratively with them?
Yeah, now I must echo myself, I think, actually, because I almost already answered it. But I think that it goes back to, again, my experience here with different stakeholders management throughout the years. And again, someone, I think it was Kate who said that, I mean, if you work in a big organization, I mean, then you have need for resilience, and you have been in situations where you need to present efficient tools in order to get people with you, right? Or get people on the same page, if that is what you want. And I think that it comes back to the data and the numbers. It is always efficient. And again, it should be hopefully free from political cycle and commitments. If you can show the development, you can track, you can go back, and you can follow up. So with the help of data numbers, again, I think that we could hopefully continue to have really good discussions, even with people who have maybe turned gear a bit and maybe shifted path, but come back to discuss the materiality and the importance of financially, environmentally, and socio-economical forward-looking approach, really.
Great. And Catherine, do you have anything to add?
No, same. Excel, data, numbers, proof.
Amazing. You know, I'm as a chartered accountant by training. I love Excel, and I love the data. So that's kind of music to my heart, you know, waiting for the sustainability metrics to become truly comparable and analyzable. Right. So we're almost at the end, and we usually ask guests to pose a question for the next participants, but as this is our last episode, if I could ask each of you to leave, one idea, mindset, or advice for the next generation of sustainability leaders, and any gender for that matter, what would that be? And maybe Kerstin, starting with you first.
Oh, I think we have a lot of quotes to pick from here today. But I was actually thinking when I saw this question, I was more thinking about more general. And I think that, again, follow your values and your belief. And that hopefully then steer your money as well to what is good for the planet and for society. And then on a more, I was also thinking this as another very good advice that I got, that we should all have a mentor and a sponsor around you. And what is then the difference? And I haven't really thought about it myself in this context before. The mentor talks to you and a sponsor talks about you. And I think that was really a really interesting way to put it. And I think you need it in the field of sustainability, but you need it also in the field of banking and your life, basically. So that was my kind of takeaway from that and wanted to share.
Great. And Catherine?
Yeah, that's great advice. Hopefully the mentor and the sponsor talk to you in a positive way. that's something else we need to work on. My advice would be, how do you eat an elephant bit by bit? So I think it's a long-term business. And this is frustrating sometimes because of our short-term views and how the markets naturally work. So it's lots of perseverance. And also, I think that any sustainability professional should really know their business, know what they're doing, know what the reality of the business is, what the value chain, how the value proposition works, and make sure that sustainability kind of breeds and lives and helps the business get better. And, you know, perhaps we get to a stage where there are no sustainability professionals per se. And that's what we're all really wanting to do. We want to work ourselves out of a job because we want each area to actually take visibility as a core value and a core piece of how they're going to get their job done. So, summary, what I'm saying is lose your jobs as a sustainability profession, but just make it more mainstream. Thanks.
Oh, that's great. And Kate, what are your parting words?
I'm totally taking these nuggets of advice. I've loved this podcast so much, this last 50 minutes or so. So my advice, it will have to be to surround yourself with like-minded people. And it's very easy to get lost in the day-to-day role as a sustainability professional. But to stay connected to our purpose, we need to stay connected to each other, build a network, attend all of the sustainability conferences you are able to, join professional groups, meet others in the field for coffee chats. And I hope if you're ever in the UK as participants, please do, you should. And then on tough days, you've got a support system of people who also share your passion and your vision for the sustainable future. And that really can make all the difference to keep going.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Kate. And great. I'm very pleased that I managed to connect the three of you. Hopefully you'll have a chance to meet with each other in real life sometime. And really huge thank you, Kerstin, Catherine, and Kate, for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you to everyone who listened in to our 7th and final episode of the Women in Sustainability podcast. We hope you enjoy the series, and I really thank all of the participants, previous participants, as well as NatWest team for making it a successful project. And I hope to see you again next time.